absolutely disjoint things, your performance in your school exams and your performance in... And I've seen toppers, students consistently first ranked, second ranked in their high school and still struggling to go beyond a 30 in the ACT or beyond 1300, 1400 in the SAT. You've got to, buddy, rise from the shop floor. You've got to understand the attention to detail. And, so when you're doing your internship in a hotel and you're serving your dishes, you can be, sort of shouted upon at the quality of service that you're extending to your client. And that sort of training is going to be very handy when tomorrow you're running your own business, really looking at globalizing this whole educational experience. It's not just confining students to one campus. They're giving you so many opportunities that even if, say, you're at the Boston campus, why don't you go to the Oakland campus in California and spend a term there? If you're in London, why don't you go and spend a term in Boston? Get out of your comfort zone, meet with people, miss a flight, be in a land where you don't understand the language so well, figure out, life, because this is a dry run for what the uncertain future holds for you.
Hi, I'm Sashwati Sarkar and you're watching The Times of India. From debunking myths around ACTs and GREs to calling out the overhype around brand name universities, we bring brutal honesty to the study abroad space. Why are Indian students still ignoring top-ranked Asian universities? What do Ivy League gatekeepers really want beyond perfect scores? And is early decision a golden ticket or just privilege repackaged? To break it all down, we are joined by someone who has mentored students into Harvard, Stanford and beyond. Punnya Vij, founder and managing director of EduCoach. Let's hear what he has to say. Welcome to the show, Punnya. So, Punnya, you have personally trained many students, study abroad aspirants for tests like ACT, SAT and GRE. What is the biggest myth that Indian students believe about cracking these tests? And also, what is the one brutal truth that they ignore until it's too late?
Okay, so Shashwati, I feel the biggest myth is, sometimes students get overconfident that they're very bright academically performing students in school. So they feel that just because we waste the system in school, we will be able to crack these exams. So I think that's a myth that I always bust. I said that, the two absolutely disjoint things, your performance in your school exams and your performance in the standardized tests. I've seen several students, at the top 60th percentile of their class and still land up acing, like they'll get 34 on 36 in the ACT, they'll get 1500 plus on the SAT. And I've seen toppers, students consistently first ranked, second ranked in their high school and still struggling to go beyond a 30 in the ACT or beyond 1300, 1400 in the SAT. So I think they're two very different things. The school tests you on specific subject aptitude and the standardized tests you on your general aptitude. So you might be getting a 90 on 100 in English, but that has no meaning on the SAT because they're testing you on your reading comprehension skills, etc. in a time framed manner, and it's a standardized test at the end of the day. So I think that's one myth. And I think the brutal truth stems from the myth that I've mentioned, that it requires serious work. So you can't get complacent or overconfident just based on the performance that you have in your school exams. You've got to study. And sometimes students feel that, they're genuinely smart, and because it's a standardized test and they have a certain level of IQ, they have an analytical mind, even if they don't practice as much or put time to the exam, they feel that they'll be able to wing it, right? Or just relying on the tutor, like I'll join the best SAT tutorial company and I'll get the best possible score. It doesn't happen like this. A tutor will only help you, will help you understand concepts very well, but if you don't put that into practice, it's not going to work out. So I tell all my students that the tutor's role is 30%, your own
is 70%.
Self-study is 70% of it. So I think these are the two brutal truths, that one, A, you've got to put in the effort, you've got to put in the number of hours that are required to ace the exam. And B, it requires regular hard work. Just because you're smart will not get you the result at the end of the day.
So give us 3 non-brand name global universities that are punching way above their weight and where Indian students have a serious edge.
So I'm going to start off with a name which I may sound slightly unusual to the audience, but I would say University of Waterloo in Canada. So Canada has been not the best place to study for the last 2 admission cycles right now because of the geopolitical situation between India and Canada.
And also the strict and stringent immigration rules.
Strict immigration
rules.
policy.
Student capping.
Very, very high rentals, which are leading to very high cost of living in Canada. So we've barely had any students apply even to Canada, forget going. But I feel that University of Waterloo in Canada is an excellent college. I feel it's undervalued, even in today's current scenario of the geopolitical situation between India and Canada. And Waterloo's flagship program is mathematics and computer science. So data science, data analytics, computer science, math. They've got one of the best math and computer science joint programs. And given the fact that Indian students are innately analytical and mathematical when you compare them to their counterparts in different parts of the world, I feel that Indian students going to Waterloo doing a course around math, computer science, data science definitely have an edge. Second, I would say École Hôtelière de Lausanne, which is a hospitality management school. In fact, by QS World Rankings, it's ranked #1 in the world. It's located in Lausanne, which is just off Geneva in Switzerland. It has a BSc International Hospitality Management program. And I feel, and this is a constant exercise, parents who've met me and engaged with me frequently know this, that I always tell them that hospitality is not hotel management. Unfortunately, in India, the moment hospitality word is discussed, parents have their eyebrows raised and they're like, no, we don't want our kids to go to a hotel management school. I'm talking about, certain parents who have very high aspirations from their kids, and, the kids are looking at top finance programs, top business programs. And when I land up, bringing this name up, people are like, why? My kid is very bright. And I have to tell them that, look, for example, if there are 500 students graduating every year from this college, if 500 students start every year, there are only about 250 or 300 who land up graduating. The remaining students are not able to go beyond second year. They take transfers because it's a very, very mathematically inclined business program. Just because it's hospitality does not mean that you're only studying about hotel management. So hospitality globally and specifically in Switzerland is a very broad term which includes industries like real estate, travel, tourism, hotels, luxury brand management, consulting, even banking. A lot of financial deals are struck on golf courses, right? They're discussed over fancy Michelin dinners. And so hospitality typically is learning the art of running a business or an enterprise with fine nuances of interpersonal communication and the soft interpersonal skills intertwined. So that's the language or medium of studying business in Switzerland, right? So where you're not just focusing,
the nuance.
Where you're not just focusing on concepts of accounting, strategy, management, but you're also intertwining them with the interpersonal skills, and then also studying business in a very practical context. So out of the 4 years that students study their undergrad program at, say, a college like EHL in Switzerland, 1 full year is work. So you're doing a 6-month internship in first year, you're doing a 6-month internship in the third year. And the first internship is, yes, in a hotel, because the Swiss believe that because of the various departments that are there in a hotel, there's a front office, 2 weeks that you have to do 2 weeks in the back office, finance department, strategy department, kitchen, serving, so many things. So it helps you understand the versatility of business as a sector. And B, if you're looking at becoming the CEO of a business, or you're looking at setting up your own business, you've got to, rise from the shop floor. You've got to understand the attention to detail. And, so when you're doing your internship in a hotel and you're serving your dishes, you can be, sort of shouted upon at the quality of service that you're extending to your client. And that sort of training is going to be very handy when tomorrow you're running your own business, where you're going to be so precise about, the quality and what you bring to the table. So I feel that in today's, VUCA world, which is more focused on skill building, a practical approach business program on the lines of what EHL has to offer is a phenomenal program. Indians have got to understand the term hospitality in a much broader sense, and hence I feel that it's a hidden gem which the Indian market and the world in general needs to know. So, and the third college I would say is Northeastern University in Boston. Now, of course, it's a global university. It's got campuses all across. They have a campus in New York. They have a campus in London. They run a global scholars program. They run London scholars program. They run New York scholars program, NUN, etc. So there are multiple programs that Northeastern is running. But why I say Northeastern is because a couple of years ago, Northeastern University used to have an acceptance rate of about 30%, 35%, 40%. Typically the time when the parents of my students that say I'm working with right now applied back then. It was not considered a very selective school. And, if I were to bring it up again, Northeastern used to be it used to be a piece of cake. Why do you want a child to apply there? But the reality is, if today you look at the acceptance rate, it's, for the Boston campus, it was approximately 5% this year. And why do I think that the acceptance rate has become so low, it's become so selective, is because Northeastern is really looking at globalizing this whole educational experience. It's not just confining students to one campus. They're giving you so many opportunities that even if, say, you are at the Boston campus, why don't you go to the Oakland campus in California and spend a term there? If you're in London, why don't you go and spend a term in Boston? And second, they've got co-op programs. So co-op stands for cooperative programs, which is a concept that originated in China. In fact, in Canada, sorry. In fact, Waterloo that I mentioned as the first university is synonymous with co-op education in the world. So co-op means that from the second year onwards, you take a pause of about, say, 4 months or 6 months. From study, you take a sabbatical and you replace that with a work term. And it's not just a mere clerical internship. It's not where you're going just like a summer internship after your first year and people are just asking you to fill coffee jars or just get printouts. It's a serious internship and it's oriented towards converting that co-op term into a full-fledged pre-placement offer when you graduate. So this concept is very popular in Canada. America does not have too many options for co-op education. Northeastern is one of the most popular and famous ones. So because of Northeastern's focus on globalizing education and on ensuring that students have the best shot at getting internships, which generally students struggle with in the US, which could then convert to job offers, I feel that Northeastern would be my third pick over there.
Right. Great for, it was really great to hear these, pieces of information which are very vital, but often, I have not heard people talking about these options too much.
Right.
Very less talked about options these are. Thank you. So many Indian students consider taking a gap year,
yes,
to improve their scores and build their profiles. Is it a smart move, or does it send a red flag to top universities globally?
Okay, so no, there's no red flag as such. Whether students take a gap year or not, you can debate the decision from various perspectives, financial perspective, whether you will stray away from education altogether and not be able to come back to studying if you've taken a gap after your high school. So there can be various reasons of debating whether a gap year is good or not. Personally, with such astronomical cost of education, I feel that gap year may not be the best unless you really need to have one. Now, what are the cases that you may need to have a gap year? It could be you are clear that you want to only go to country X and the geopolitics in that country are not the best. Like I have a few students this year actually discussing about taking a gap year because they are US bound, and because of what's happening in the US, they're like, is it a good time to go right now? Let me take a gap year. And I'm like, I don't think things are going to change in 1 year that you really feel you want to take a gap year or not. So yes, students come up with these notions, but sometimes if I feel as a counselor that it's a transient phase and maybe in a year the geopolitical situation could become better, yes, by all means take a gap year. Second, there could be a medical exigency that arises in the process that you can commit to a college and you're not able to go. So please take a gap year. I had a student who took a gap year last year who was going to university. And a lot of these countries, when you apply for the student visas, you have to get a full body checkup done. And when he went for his test, it came up that he had a benign tumor in his, in some part of his body, and he had to get rid of it. So there was no way he could have gone to college. So he took a gap year. So in cases like these, it's justifiable. Or sometimes students were expecting...
Have no choice.
Yeah. Or students, they were expecting a 90% and they'll end up getting 70% in their final exams. So even though a lot of US admission offers are unconditional, sometimes students want to prove a point to themselves, and rightfully so, that look, I've got my university offer, great, but this score 70 is not representative of my potential or aptitude. So I'm not living with this score, for the rest of my life. I've got to retake my exams. So, they would write to a college, get their admission deferred and retake the exams and probably go there. Or if they've not committed to any college, they would stay back, repeat their exams and then reapply. So these are some of the reasons why students take a gap year. Now, your question was, is it a red flag to colleges when you have a gap year? Absolutely no. What comes out of that gap year is what decides whether it's a red flag or not.
Right, absolutely right.
So if you take a gap year because you feel that your profile was not as robust, and then you'll end up adding a couple of projects, and you do something very significant or impactful or meaty that adds more dimension and flavor to your application than what could have been in the previous year, then it's definitely making your case stronger. If otherwise, your case might just remain the same, or if you're not able to add much in that 1 year, then it could even work counterproductive, because admission officers could wonder that you still had that 1 year. And because what happens is, when we are applying in the regular cycle as a class 12 student putting in their applications, colleges know that you're juggling with everything else that every other student is doing. So they also contextualize your application in that way, knowing that, okay, yes, you're spending 8 hours in school, then you've got chores to do at home, you've got to do your projects, you've got to do every other obligation that you have or things that one must do to apply to college. So it's okay, but if you're not going to school in that gap year, you've completed your high school, then you've got to show something else. You can't be sitting on your bed or in your bed lying down and just chilling and lazing around and saying that, I needed to take a gap year just to take it very easy. So in that case, you're not making an impactful story. And if students really feel burnt out in the year that they apply and they feel that they want to take a gap year because they've missed out on things that they really wanted to do, then my suggestion is, please apply beforehand, get your admission offer, defer your seat, explain to the admission officer of the university you're supposed to join that why do you think you can't join that year, pay your deposit, defer it to the next year, and then by all means do whatever you want to do.
That's a smart decision.
Yeah.
That's a smart move. Yeah. So you've sent many students to Ivy League colleges, right? So what are Ivy admissions officers in 2025 looking for in an applicant apart from their GPAs and their SAT scores?
Okay, so I feel that they're Ivies for a certain reason, and that reason is that they're looking at very, very bright students who are going to be the key decision makers, key stakeholders from a global standpoint, and hence the importance of academics cannot be discounted. And even though your question said apart from academics, I thought I must still let you, make this point very clear, because while that's the core, this is also one of the greatest myths that, okay, you know what, I've done 5 internships and, my internship was at Apple. I interned with the President's Office of India. So even if I've got a 70%, I should be able to get into an Ivy League because I've got these fat projects. So that could have happened in the past, but it definitely does not fly in today's time where it's ultra competitive. So I want to stress this point that academics is the singular most important part in the application. Now, apart from that, what I think Ivies would be looking at a lot of IVs have gone back to requiring the test scores, which was not the case up until last year. So in 2020, when COVID hit the world, a lot of universities, including the Ivy Leagues, had become test optional. Some of them had become even test blind. So which meant that, so test blind means that even if you report your SAT scores or your ACT scores, they are hidden from the application. They play no meaning in the admission decision. Test optional means that if a student has taken the SAT, he or she can report the score if they feel that that score is adding value to the application, or if compared to their school academics and their SAT scores, the SAT score is higher. So it's basically, sort of demonstrating greater academic potential or aptitude than what is exhibited through just the school grades. So the second point I want to add here is that the importance of standardized test scores is becoming more and more important. Like Brown requires the test scores now, which it didn't up until 2 years ago. From this admission cycle onwards, Cornell is going back to requiring the test scores. Those are some certain changes that are happening in Ivy League colleges specifically. But apart from the school academics and the Ivy League scores, I think the Ivy League colleges are really looking at very strong leadership skills and the genuine person you are beyond this facade that you build, to show the rosy image. So everybody's got, 2 research papers on their application. Everybody's got 3 internships. Everybody's got the grades. Assuming that, they are level-headed in their own personal decision making when they're choosing their colleges. They've got their test scores. So everybody's caking up this whole application out there, where I feel that for the Ivy League colleges, they genuinely want to understand who you are at the core. So even adding some really simple activities and not just following the basic cookie cutter approach that, okay, if everybody's doing research, let me add research to it. So just that unique differentiating factor, I feel keeping the applications really simple. Like some of my Ivy League admits every year have been students who've had the simplest essays. They might be talking about something which is very simple. Like I still remember a student having written his essay about, his fascination with chilies. Like no meal would be complete without a couple of chilies thrown in, and how he was daring enough to, have chilies with every meal, where everybody would be like, we can't raise this, but he would. And how through that whole experience of being attached to chilies, as a part of his food experience every day or every meal, he was able to explain who he is as a person, and a lot of other virtues and attributes came out. So it needs to be a genuine application. It needs to be a simple application. You don't need to overcomplicate it and make it sound as if, yes, you need your awards, you need your academics, you need your SAT scores, but you also need these idiosyncrasies, these quirks, these very simple things. Yes,
apparently innocuous, but fascinating details of life.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Do you think early decision is still the golden ticket to US schools, or is it increasingly becoming a tool that favors the privileged few?
No, I feel that early decision, if you've got to go to a top US college, again, counselors can be divided over this. My personal view is I always encourage my students, so very clear they want to study in the US. US is their top choice, and pick up the best college or the one that they're most keen to go to, their first choice, and definitely, try to aim for an early decision, because statistics reveal, not me, statistics reveal that the acceptance rate is the highest in most colleges. Yes, there are a few colleges where the acceptance rate is almost comparable. Like, for example, Georgetown, whether you do the early action, not early decision, but a regular decision, the acceptance rate is almost the same. But if you look at most other colleges that have a restrictive early action or an early decision, statistics reveal that the early decision rate is almost double or in some cases even triple of what it would be in the regular decision. So it's a no-brainer that if US is your first choice, then you should be looking at
But
doing
is it
an
a
early decision.
privilege for, is it a tool that favors, I mean, it's a tool that favors only the privileged few, isn't it?
So yes, if you've got to apply for, I actually would disagree, because if you indicate that you want aid on the application and you get admission but you don't get the aid, your early decision is not binding. You still have the option of breaking that ED and going to another college. So I don't feel it would be a privilege in any way. It's just a strategic route towards increasing your chance of getting admission into the colleges. I don't feel that it favors, and in today's time where, like we were talking about Northeastern University a couple of minutes ago with how the acceptance rate has changed, and that's a reality with almost every institution. 30% acceptance rate colleges are today 10%, 8%, 6%. So if you've got to increase your chances, then early decision is the way to go forward.
So here is a question which compares the Oxbridge institutes and the US. So when it comes to Oxbridge, how should Indian students approach personal statements differently than what they would have done for the US? Where do they get it wrong while applying for Oxbridge and other US top colleges?
So whether it's any other UK institution or Oxbridge in the UK, the personal statement is the same. So UK has one personal statement. Till last year, it used to be one personal statement, 4,000 characters, 47 lines, explaining why do you want to study the course that you want to study, what is the academic motivation behind it. So the personal statement had to be very, very technical and academic in nature, while the primary essay for the US applications is the Common App essay, because Common App is the central application through which you apply to the US. 650 words, and there are about 7 or 8 prompts out there. Now the prompts are like one talent that you have or skill that you have without which you're incomplete as a person. What is it that you find so engaging that you lose time doing? One moment that marked your transition from childhood to adulthood, one challenge that you've overcome, one greatest achievement. So the essays for the US, the main Common App essay is not academically oriented at all.
The focus is more on the persona
the focus
behind
is
the
on
applicant.
you, your skills, your attributes, your life story coming out through certain incidents or certain anecdotes. So like I said, a student whose Common App essay was based on his fascination with chilies, right? Nowhere did the student mention that I want to study food, I want to do my undergrad degree in food studies, and hence chosen the route of putting this essay together. So the Common App essay that you have may not have any correlation with the major that you want to study, which is the opposite of what happens in a UK personal statement. Now, when you apply to Oxbridge, which is Oxford or Cambridge, you can only apply to one. You can apply to 5 colleges in the UK through the UCAS application, and you can't apply to both Oxford and Cambridge. So you choose one, which is why it's Oxbridge plus 4 other colleges you can add. Now the same personal statement goes to all the 5 UK colleges, right? So which has to be around the major and your academic motivation. So the pattern of that personal statement is changing from this year, where instead of one essay, there are going to be 3 essays, but the combined character count for those 3 is still going to be 4,000 characters, what used to be earlier. So basically, they've broken it down into like, what is your academic motivation, what have you done outside of school, your curriculars, super curriculars related to the course. So largely the theme is still the same, but divided into 3 boxes. And you have to fill every box to at least 150 characters, and the total count can be 4,000 characters. So when one wants to apply to the Oxbridge, you have to understand that it's a part of the UCAS. Because it's a part of the UCAS, it requires these 3 questions to be answered, and those 3 questions have to all be related to the major that you want to study and what have you done. So let's pick a hypothetical case, say a student wants to study business management. So your focus then for, okay, I won't take business management because say Cambridge doesn't have business, let me pick up something like psychology. Okay, now your personal statement in the UK for Oxbridge is going to ask you to talk about your motivation behind studying psychology. So have you studied psychology as a subject in 11th or 12th? What modules did you enjoy the most in school in psychology? What theories of psychology did you connect with? Have you done any internships in psychology? What did you learn from those internships? Have you done any research work in school or outside of school related to psychology? Have you watched any podcast related to psychology? Have you read any book about psychology? Have you met any psychologists? What theories did you end up discussing? And what are then your short-term and long-term goals if you were to study psychology? So that has to be your main personal statement focus for Oxbridge. Now, when you say do get shortlisted for Oxbridge, then there is also a mandatory interview that you have to go through. And this interview has two components. One component is your general fit for Oxbridge as a student. Now, when I say general fit, I'm talking about the general skills that a high performing student should have to cope in a very high rigor sort of an institution. So the kind of curriculum that you studied in the past, was it rigorous enough or not? So it's a part of the pre-screening also when you get shortlisted for the interview, but then they will again assess all of these things. And the second part is very again subject specific. So they will pick up a few questions related to psychology, things that you may not have even studied in your school curriculum in psychology, and you may not arrive at the right answer necessarily, but how do you reach the final concluding point that you mentioned from one step to the other step? How are you thinking? How is one point leading to the other point? That's what they want to see, that how can you correlate to theories together. So like I do personally, in my organization, I had the Oxbridge interview part myself, regardless of what the course is, whether somebody is applying for law, engineering, sciences, etc. I've done so much study over the years personally that I'm equipped now to take interviews for any of these subjects, and I personally do it. I don't leave it to my team as well. So I love doing it because there's so much academic depth that one has to go into. That's what they're looking at, right? And in the US, the main Common App, as I said, is very general essay. In addition to that, there are colleges that require supplementary essays in the US. Now, those supplementary essays could be why have you applied for the major that you've applied for? Or why do you want to study at Cornell University, just hypothetically saying, not that it's a prompt for Cornell. So the main piece, the Common App essay for the US and the main personal statement for the UK are completely different.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm sure this will be an eye-opener for our viewers.
Sure.
So Singapore and Hong Kong universities are now globally ranked, but still underchosen by Indian students. Why do you think elite families continue to overlook Asia when it comes to smarter academic and financial?
So Shashwati, I feel that the tables are turning. I have seen an increase in the number of Singapore applications by almost 40% this year.
When? This year?
From this year. So the application cycle, the previous
Spawned
application
by
cycle.
what is happening in the West, the geopolitical tensions and everything?
I feel so, and I also feel that the overall global sentiment, Indian sentiment, towards the globe as a scenario is changing, where they feel that the real action is going to be in Asia or India. Like I have a lot of students even staying back in India to study at some of the top colleges, and students who don't want to stay in India, but eventually India is a favored place to come back to, then they're open to looking at options which are in proximity to India or culturally similar to India, the style of doing business, the style of communication, how it is in India. Let's find out other countries, where a similar sort of a style exists. So UAE has risen quite a bit. I have a lot of students looking at Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc. And Singapore, because it has always been a very popular destination, proximity to India, very strict policy on substance use. So all of these factors have always made Singapore as a favorable place for parents, if not students. But not many were applying for a couple of years, as many would like to, because of the advantages that I just mentioned, was because somewhere the perception is, which in a lot of ways is true, is that Asia is a very academically oriented geography when it comes to study. So when students would go to Singapore to study, they would be at some of the best colleges like NUS Singapore, so NUS is National University of Singapore, NTU is Nanyang Technological University, SMU Singapore Management University. So these three are like the three most popular universities in Singapore. Very selective, in top 20 QS rankings, but still students would be like, when they would compare their life to lives of their friends studying in the US, sometimes even slightly lower ranked universities in the US, they would find that the students there would be having a more holistic educational experience as compared to them in Singapore, because Singapore is very academically inclined, highly Asian dominated, so a lot of Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese kids, while students in America would be exposed to at least 100 nationalities on campus. So I think the kind of wholesome experience that they were expecting, they would not be able to derive that. So that's why Singapore was not very popular for many years, but it's, as I said, back on the grid, at least in from the statistics that I have from my organization, and as I hear and talk to many other counselors, they share the same view. As far as Hong Kong is concerned, again, because of the geopolitical situation in Hong Kong, Hong Kong was not being picked up by many students and families. But for students who want to study finance, being the financial capital of Asia, there are tons of jobs in finance, banking, economics and finance, accounting and finance. And students who are valuing employment over other factors, in their priority list, are going to be looking at Hong Kong. I'm a strong advocate that Hong Kong, I think, is a great place to study now, and the geopolitical situation is also...
What is the post-study work scenario over there?
So Hong Kong, if you spend 8 years, 7 years or 8 years, somewhere around that, you can apply for a permanent residency. So 4 years is what typically most colleges have the duration of their undergrad degree. So say you've worked for 4 years, you decide to do your postgrad also, say in Hong Kong, so 6 years. You can work for 1 year after undergrad or 2 years after undergrad, you make the 8 years. And then you do your postgrad, and then you've got your permanent residency. So especially if you're looking at finance, commerce, all of those industries which are prevalent in that part of the world, and you want to settle down, I think Hong Kong is a great place. And I think Hong Kong is also
the PR route is not that tough.
From what I hear from students, I have had a couple of students who've managed to get their PR and are pretty happy and well settled in Hong Kong. So I feel that, yes, they've not been the most popular destinations for the elite Indian families, because if they feel they can afford it, why not go to the US or UK? Because they're looking at not just from an academic perspective, but even from a social perspective, networking perspective, and the likes. But I feel that because of the uncertainty now in some of these popular destinations that elite families choose, many will now start looking at Asia in general. So Singapore, Hong Kong, Dubai, Abu Dhabi,
UAE.
And even Japan is coming up, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I have a student this year looking at biotechnology.
I'm surprised by the fact that why does Japan, it has taken long to come up as a favored study abroad destination. Why is it so? It is so technologically equipped and so advanced technologically, and it's a very disciplined country, yes. Very peaceful.
So I think why? Because I think by matter of choice probably, because since it's a very disciplined country, the moment you open a country to every part of the world, people start flocking and running to that country, and it no longer becomes the place that you have envisioned that place to be, and you've appreciated that place for certain reasons. Because when there's a lot of immigration happening to a particular country, it's sometimes, yes, one way to look at it is, it becomes a melting pot of cultures from different parts of the world, but also, there's pressure on natural resource. There's pressure on natural resourses of that land.
Natural
So
resources and housing and everything, right?
Like what happened in Dublin, what happened in Canada, because so many people going to these places. There's huge housing crisis going on currently in Dublin as I speak. Dublin, not only because of the student population going there to study, but also because of the whole Ukraine-Russia war and refugees sort of moving in there. But Canada, Amsterdam and Netherlands in general, because ever since so many students have started going, there's a huge housing crisis. So Japan has been, they've been very happy and content in the way, they have been, by not opening their country and their universities to rest of the world. But I think they realize now that the advantages are more than disadvantages, and hence I think they don't want to be left behind. And now they're converting a lot of their local programs which were only taught in Japanese into English because they want international students to come in.
So you've mentored study abroad applicants for subjects like economics, law, computer science, business, and even hospitality, right?
Yes.
So which is one course that Indian students over apply for without understanding what the global curriculum actually demands?
I would say, given the times you're living in, I would say computer science. I feel that I see a lot of students struggling to get jobs for computer science.
Anticipating this.
Yeah. So computer science is something which is oversubscribed for. People don't really understand that general computer science is not going to now get them what it could get them a few years earlier because of this whole huge AI wave that's tiding over the world. So my advice to students is to look at either AI focused courses if they want to still do something related to computer science but not like a generic computer science degree, or then look at courses like where AI or computer science is actually being applied. Like for example, today bioinformatics is there. You can combine biology and computer science together. You can look at applied mathematics or computational finance, where you can look at mathematics and computer science coming together. Or digital humanities, where you're combining political science or international relations. Like for example, if you look at any election results or campaign, there is so much data analysis that goes into the whole political decision making. That's basically what digital humanities. So you're combining technology, computer science, and AI with humanities. So with politics, social sciences, humanities, and international relations.
Very interesting.
Climate change and technology. So look at courses like these, and I feel that even courses which were looked down upon earlier or would have lower entry requirements, like liberal arts, that okay, if you're confused, you don't know what to do, go for liberal arts. That's what used to be the perception earlier. And parents would not be very happy when I would bring up liberal arts as a course, because they would be like, so do you really want my kid to still be confused at the end of 4 years or 2 years once he or she is into college as to what they want to do? Because liberal arts gives you greater freedom to pick and choose what you want to do, change your majors, etc. But I think that's the need of the hour, because the focus is now more on skills, and not just one skill but multi-skills to have from an employment perspective. And the best way to acquire multiple skills together at the same time is if you're doing liberal arts, where you're going to be majoring in something, but alongside majoring in something, you're also going to be doing a little bit of various disciplines, and that's only increasing your knowledge base and increasing your skill base. So I think liberal arts is hugely back on the grid, and I do see now parents also understanding what the value that liberal arts education brings to the table. And even courses like anthropology, sociology, etc., these would be courses which would not be as popular, but I feel that in this mechanized AI driven world, things that are going to differentiate the final outcome products are going to be the human factors that go into sort of human factors combined with technology. And those human factors, those perspectives will only come in from traditional essay based subjects, non-technical subjects, whether it's art history, whether it's anthropology, whether it's sociology, whether it's philosophy. Like if today you have to train an AI model, you are a prompt engineer, you just don't need the skills of computer science, or you also need to understand language, you need to understand
nuances and human psychology as well.
So I think all of these humanities courses are going to be hugely in demand in the future.
That brings us to our last question of this very meaningful session. Most parents ask this question: what's the ROI of this degree abroad? Now, when they ask you, and you know that this particular degree may not offer an ROI, or the ROI is uncertain, what do you tell them?
Okay.
I mean, especially for courses in liberal arts and humanities.
Okay, so I don't consider ROI only from the perspective of financial ROI. I look at ROI as a very broad term, and I tell them that your return on investment is the financial return plus the human factor return, and that human factor return, or human capital rather, is basically who you are and what your future prospective potential or earning capability is, not just what you are earning in the next 4 years, but the kind of mindset that you're fostering, the kind of personality that you're fostering, which will decide the course of many, many years of future. So I am of the strong belief that the true shaping of personality happens when you are away from your comfort zone. And yes, it might be very expensive to get American education. And if families come to me with a budget constraint, I tell them that America is not the only place that you need to go. Within America also, you can get a university which will cost you $40,000 a year tuition, and then you have universities that will cost you $90,000 a year. So if finance is a constraint, we can compromise on some other factors. We can probably not go to an A++ institution, we can go to an A institution, or let's not look at downtown New York, let's look at a suburb in New York and let's save on the living costs. So let's not look at a more expensive private university, let's look at a public university. Or let's not look at America at all, let's look at Europe. There are some universities which are probably cheaper than what Ashoka University in India would cost you. But go and experience that world out there, build on your life skills, build on networking skills, get out of your comfort zone, meet with people, miss a flight, be in a land where you don't understand the language so well, figure out life, because this is a dry run for what the uncertain future holds for you. So I feel then if you try and explain it from this perspective, I think parents will understand what return on investment means. It's not just the financial return on investment, it's a holistic return on investment.